the latest phase of AI, large language models, has opened up some pathways for basically people to kind of communicate with their computers through natural language. With this co-build model, the founders themselves are the ones writing the majority of the code to build out these MVPs. And then we're stepping alongside of them, being their co-pilot. If you're testing with B2B, I'd like to see at least two or three clients kind of as quickly as possible. If it's consumer, that number definitely needs to be higher.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today? Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Ethan Cassiotis, and today I have a powerful guest. His name is Joel Brewer, and he is the founder and CEO of Brewer Digital, a US-based software development agency that helps early-stage startup founders launch products with confidence. And a software developer himself, Joel works directly with founders who have an idea, some traction, or fresh funding, but no internal engineering leadership. And his team builds MVPs, rescues failed offshore projects, and helps founders make smart technical decisions before they burn runway. Welcome, Joel, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Ethan, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, you're welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be very impactful for everyone watching and listening now. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us a bit more about you and your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm Joel Brewer, founder of Brewer Digital. Like you said, we're a software development partner for startups and growing businesses. And I have a strong belief that startups don't fail because of bad ideas. I would say they fail because they build a beautiful product that doesn't sell, right? There's no ROI. So they build this great thing, they can't sell it. So I think one of the things that I've really focused on is, well, one, improving the feedback loops, right? So like making sure that you're getting something out into the market quickly, that you're testing it quickly, and then just really like improving the communication. So making sure that your communication between the startup and the market, right? That there's communication there between the engineers and the founders. So yeah, it's a lot of like optimization, but yeah, we're started as a freelance software developer and, now have worked with, I don't know, 70 plus startups. So, I've learned a lot. I've gone from kind of solo developer, solo engineer to now managing a team. And it's been exciting. There's obviously been a lot of change in the industry over the past 13 years, but it's been really fun. And I love working with these early stage folks who, don't have it all figured out, but are kind of pushing the boundary with innovation. So yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, awesome, man. And well done for taking the shift, from
Yeah.
I guess doing it yourself as well, right? Because we've all been there. We've got to start somewhere, right? And get our hands dirty and then, go on that business owner journey, right? And I think a lot of people, that I see that are at the early stage initially find that challenging, or even if they're growing and they're starting because they sort of want to do everything themselves, right? Or no one can do it as good as me.
Yeah.
This type of mindset, right there. So, what do you
Yeah.
think was key for you to really step into that and have a really great team as an agency owner?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll be the first to admit that I'm still not perfect at that, right? Like there's still a lot. I still get my hands dirty a lot, and my team will probably say like maybe I get my hands dirty too many times, but I think I mean it's simple stuff, right? It comes back to like delegation, like being able to break down the process into like the individual components and finding people. I think the thing that unlocked it for me was like finding people that are better than me at whatever particular thing there is, right? So like I started as a software engineer, a software developer, and, did front end development and back end development. And I was a pretty decent, I still am, a pretty decent engineer, but like I could find people that are better than me at front end development, at back end development, find designers. I've done design work, but I'm not a designer. Like find designers that are better than me, find project managers that are better than me. So I think that like that helps. And I think that keeps the quality like I think if you do it right, the quality should increase, right? Like you should find people that are better than you at whatever it was you were doing. Um, so I think that was a kind of a trick, I don't know, mental trick, I guess, that I played that kind of helped me with that.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's it's that saying there, right? It's like you don't want to necessarily be the smartest person in the room, right? Because you're in the wrong room
Yep,
type of thing. So
exactly.
hire people
Yep,
better. Don't try and be the best there. Going who are the specialists that can do this and work in your zone of genius more, right? Of what you're going to be, yeah, growing there. So,
for sure,
uh, yeah,
for sure.
awesome, man. And I guess yeah, because there's I guess there's two sides, right? Um you've got people that are obviously building software, right, that you're helping with, right,
Hmm.
to put it out there. But also there's maybe that's to put it to a market, or maybe it's just to help them internally, right, like in their business because they need something that's going to better run their business. So, you know,
Yeah.
what do you think that what is the landscape when you're working with businesses that their understanding of software and what's really needed to move the needle for them as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, well, part of that, I guess, gets down to like what, kind of what do we provide, or like how do we help businesses? And I think like high level, the kind of work that we do falls into, I would say, two buckets. One is more on the consulting, like consulting side, kind of strategy, design might kind of fall into there, right? Kind of the architecture, the consulting and the strategy. And then there's kind of this bucket of like implementation, which is typically some sort of a retainer arrangement. And I think there's like a spectrum there of what clients need. And so some of them just need like a helping hand, right, to work through a few particular problems, and just need a bit more on the consulting. And maybe they want to be more hands-on. Others are like, no, we want you guys to handle it. You guys are experts. We're not engineers. And so that falls into more of that implementation side. So yeah, I think it really depends on the particular client, and then obviously it's kind of a collaboration to figure out like where do we fall there, and what makes the most sense for this particular project.
Yeah, nice, awesome. And I think what you talked about earlier, which I think was really important, was about speed, right? And I think now these days,
Yeah,
especially, with AI coming in place, and with
yeah,
everybody, it's like software can move a lot faster than what it used to be, back then. So, getting something to market, you talked about, like maybe like an MVP, right, and things like this,
hmm,
to get something out there. So, do you want to talk a little bit to people? Minimum viable product is what that means for everybody that doesn't know what an MVP is. But getting something out there, right, to the market, and then understanding it. So, do you want to maybe talk about the importance of that initial process, right, to get something that's actually going to be, monetizable and be successful in the end?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, and I think it's changing too, right? Like I think, even like 6 months ago, 12 months ago, right? If a founder came to us and they had an idea, then we would, like, kind of our first step would be to like understand what it is they're trying to build, design it, and then kind of bring in our team to build it out, right? And maybe that takes 3 to 6 months, could take longer. And that was kind of a pretty standard process. I think something that we're seeing is that clients want to move faster, and they can move faster, because of all these new tools and because of AI and everything. And so something that we've been exploring is something that we're calling like a co-build model. And this is it's mainly for it's for the folks that want to move fast, but also want to do it maybe in a bit more, maybe they're a bit more price sensitive. So with our, like with this, like I said, we're still exploring with it, still playing around with the names, and we're kind of trialing it with a few different clients now. Um, but with this co-build model, um, the founders themselves, the startup founders, are actually the ones writing like the majority of the code. Using Claude, right? So they're using Claude to like build out these MVPs, and then we're stepping alongside of them, kind of being their co-pilot, like the human in the loop. It's kind of a people are talking about, but kind of sitting there alongside of them, kind of in the if they're in the driver's seat, right, then we're like in the seat next to them, the passenger seat. Um, and helping them so that they're setting themselves up for success, and so this helps them save money. It allows them to move faster, maybe than they were before. Because I think, this whole thing about like these rapid feedback loops, like no one knows that MVP better than the founder themselves, right? But many of these founders are non-technical, so it's pretty easy to like shoot yourself in the foot with Claude Code, with Level, with things like that. So we found that like just providing some guidance there, being like kind of a co-pilot, a navigator, I don't know. People have really liked it, and yeah, it's been working pretty well.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing Claude, definitely changed the game more recently, like from the standard LLM, better than ChatGPT to Claude Cowork, the automation side, and now obviously Claude Code and that. And I'm actually, working with some clients on it right now, and to building some
Yeah.
things, and it's happening relatively fast, but I'm also giving them, a little bit of guidance because I've been on some tech projects, but I'm not a software engineer. But a lot of people don't realize I guess certain elements, right? Of like you said, keeping like doing certain checks, right, in the process and how to actually do an IT project correctly. It's not like, hey, I just do a few little prompts and hey, I've got a software and just deploy it. It doesn't work like that, right? There's a lot of things that you need to think about, like about, maybe security and hosting and all these other types of things, right? So do you want to talk a little bit around that side of what people don't think about and what needs to be done to make sure that you've got a product that's not going to break or create problems down the line.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's a bit nuanced, right? Because I think if you're just building out a prototype and you don't have any users on your platform yet, it's lower risk, right? So I think you can explore with a whole bunch of different things, and it's like I said, it's pretty low risk, and you can kind of I think folks can, for the most part, just kind of run with it. I think the stakes are raised once you have folks that are on it and that are depending on your system for it to be, reliable and up, and the things don't change, every few days, or once you get folks on the system, things certainly start to change. Then obviously as you start to scale, there's a lot more. So I think some of the first few things though, I mean, there are some like basic security things, right? Like we use tokens, right? API tokens for like APIs and stuff, which is basically a key, right? You don't want to put the key in a place where like anybody on the internet could grab your key and then run away with like a bunch of a bunch of basically spend a bunch of your money. So there's things like that. You don't want to have you don't want to leak passwords, and have your data. You need to have your database like relatively secure so that people can't just like hack your system and reveal a bunch of passwords, right? And that might, that obviously isn't a good thing. Anytime you're dealing with payments, right, you need to make sure that like you're treating payments with care, and that there's certain like compliance levels, right? Like you don't want to you don't want to like be storing like credit card information, right? Things like that. So there's rules, with financial information. Obviously, if you're in like some sort of regulated industry like healthcare or things like that, there's other compliance concerns there. So that's kind of some of the basic stuff. But then I think when once you're releasing something live, making sure that you have a way to like administer your platform, making sure you have like an admin portal so that if someone needs their password reset or something, you can reset their password. I mean, that's like a basic thing. If you're building out some sort of social media, making sure that you have some sort of way to like to monitor the content and things like that. Um, if you're building a mobile app and you're releasing it to Android and iOS, right? There's a lot of like concerns there that you have to pass like the review process. So I don't know. There's any number of things, I guess, that again, all of this I think can be worked through. But I think we found with the co-build model, it's really nice to have someone other than Claude in, kind of in the room, even if it's just like a virtual Slack room or a Slack channel to chat with to kind of verify things. Because I think the other thing too is like maybe something people don't realize is like Claude and and all these tools, Gemini, right? You know, they're it's not like they're unbiased, right? Like if you ask, these companies are incentivized to have you burn through as many tokens as possible, right? Burn through as much as you can, which then racks up fees. So like there's definitely cases where you want to, double check something with a person who might say, nah, like that's yes, I can see why Claude encouraged you to go this route, but really this is not the best path for your business for, XYZ reasons. Um, we did a little bit of rabbit hole there, but yeah, lots and lots of things I think to kind of think through and help people with on this journey.
Yeah, I think that was awesome, right? It's just like getting people's awareness because people just think it's simple, right? But these are the standard things that is like best practice, right? That what you're bringing to the table there. And obviously there's ongoing maintenance and stuff as well, right? Like, make sure that you're checking things throughout the system because things can change over time as you build it. Do you have like, do we look at like I remember when I've done IT projects, there's been like environments, right? Like for example, you have like a
Mhm.
test environment or a development environment, and then a test environment, then it'll go live. Is there things like this that you sort of look to build in, I guess, to these projects as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Again, the things that we take for granted, but um and again, less important when you're prototyping. But certainly once you have something live and people are using it, and there's more than just a few people using it. Yeah, if you're going to make a bunch of changes to the system, you definitely want to push it to some sort of like staging test environment, and then test it there before then pushing that live to a production environment. So yeah, absolutely something we would recommend. Again, if you're just prototyping, you may not need it, but I would say as soon as you have any number of users on it, any number of folks that are kind of relying on the system, we would certainly recommend you set up some sort of staging environment, so that you can test it before pushing it live. Right? So that you don't you because any change you make to a system could break the system, or it could break pieces of the system, right? That's like the definition of changing something is that it's changing it, which could cause some sort of like unwanted changes. And I don't know, these AI tools are kind of notorious for changing a lot. So like yeah, I think it's just as important now as it was before to have these staging environments, just to make sure that even if maybe it was a logical change and you're okay with it, but maybe it wasn't something that you meant to for your agent to do. So yeah, definitely recommended.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess ideally you're involved earlier in the process, right? Like if someone's starting something on Claude Code as an example, you're there earlier. But I guess if they've already started building for a while and they're like, crap, I want to make this live, or I need some help, right? I guess towards the end, I guess you could still come in, but then is it a bit more challenging for you guys because there's a lot of stuff more being written at that point, or it's just more around working through, I guess, where they're at and then coming up with, the next steps from there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in an ideal world, we're there from the beginning, but like I've really been encouraging folks um, to get as far as they can with Claude. Like explore these tools. Try like see if you can build something with Lovable or Claude Go, Claude Code Work, like whatever, take your pick and see how far you can get. See if you can prove something out. See, because I think one of the like I said, I think the main reason we see startups fail is because they build something that looks beautiful that nobody wants or that nobody is willing to pay for. It turns out that your friends were like just being nice when they told you, yeah, you should absolutely build that thing, right? So I think a lot of these tools are giving startup founders the ability to to test their assumptions earlier, without spending a whole bunch of money, working with an agency or something like that. Um, Now, again, I think with this co-build model, we've intentionally kept the pricing down, so it's not like you have to come to us and have us build out the entire thing. If you want us to, sure, we can build it out for you. But if you really do just want some hand holding, right, or like to talk to a human about this thing that you want to build, um, and not just have Claude like spit back exactly what you want to hear, right? That's kind of where that comes in. Um, but but yeah, yeah. I don't know. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think that was great. I think it's these are all the important realizations I think people need to realize, right? And the power of having someone like you, because I said it to my client. I said he's building this thing in Claude Code. I said we need to get a software engineer like in at some point. We need because like I'm not a
Yeah.
technical person, and I know that there's things exactly what you're talking about here today that's in the background they're not thinking about, and only someone has to have the oversight because otherwise the AI just runs rampant and you never know like what's going on, right? That's happening in the background. There needs to be some control mechanism there.
Yeah.
So I think it's very topical because a lot of people are starting to play with it. What you guys do is really really important. Um, let's talk a bit around the testing side here. So,
Mhm.
when people are going out there and testing it, right? Like with the market, because that's really what it is, like that's what the MVP is about. That's what, you're there and you want to get that. What are you seeing or thinking is best practice in terms of like how much testing is happening, the time frame, all of that type of stuff to sort of then rework the system, I guess, to where ideally the market wants it to be, let's say, or to make it work the way it should.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, hmm. So I guess is the question like how like how long to test it, or sorry,
Yeah.
maybe
How long
yeah.
or how many users? Like what should people be thinking about in that testing phase to sort of validate, I guess, going to that next stage of really creating the final product. Let's call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think, and there's probably a lot of different like modes of thought on this, and I'm sure it's dependent, on a case by case. But I think, um, I mean, even just going from like, we're talking very, very early stages, going from 0 to 1. So like getting your, I mean, even just like getting your first customer who who really, really likes the product and solves a problem for them. Honestly, I think that's a pretty huge step. Um, if it's a consumer, it depends if there's like a B2B app versus a consumer app, because obviously there's, more money in a B2B app. So that 0 to 1 is probably, more valuable. If it's a consumer app, if you're a social media app, right, then like one person doesn't make a social media app. So like your numbers increase there. You need to get some sort of like threshold there, probably several hundred, I would think at least, if not, several thousands, right, for some sort of social media. So it's different. I think if it's consumer, you obviously need more users, because your value per customer, right? Get value per user is going to be lower. Um, so it's more of a scalable thing. If it's B2B, I think that number is lower. I think the 0 to 1 is huge. I will say if you're B2B, I don't like to see folks get stuck at like just one client for too long. I've seen that go south where, um, you know, the startup is building out this product. They land a pretty big contract with like their first customer, which is great. But if you only have that customer for too long, then you end up becoming like an extension of their R&D department, or just like you're building this custom solution just for this one. So I would say getting to even just like 2 or 3 if you're B2B as quickly as possible, because now at least you're building out a platform for multiple, as opposed to like just building out a tool for a single company, which you want your solution to be a bit more generic, I think. But um so yeah, I would say yeah, like again, if we boil it down, if you're testing with B2B, I'd like to see at least, two or three clients kind of as quickly as possible. If it's consumer, that number definitely needs to be higher. Hundreds, I would say, but as many as you can get, really, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, man. Love it. On the validating side. So let's talk a bit around the failed projects or the challenging projects that people have, because that probably is the case, right? Because I've heard a lot of stories where they've had developers in and it hasn't been built properly or things
Hmm.
like it, especially like, and now it's changing the game now, or and maybe you have to go and try and fix it or rewrite it. So do you want to maybe tell us some stories or what people need to be thinking about here and what you see out there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think of a story. So we had a client that was referred to us. They're a fintech client, um, and they had been working with a number of different developers over the past couple of years, and just could never seem to get things like across the finish line. I don't know, like there was things just kept stalling, and so we came on board, and the first thing that I like to look at is like the communication flow within the organization, within between the organization and the clients. And I think ultimately that's what was breaking down was like they had this client, they had clients that were based in the UK, and then they were based in the US, and then their developers were based. I think their previous developers were based in like Eastern Europe or something like that. And so you had this like multiple hops, and we realized that like there just wasn't strong communication really between any of those hops. I don't think like they didn't have strong communication with their developers. They didn't really have strong communication with their client. So like one of the first things we implemented was like let's get everybody together right on a regular meeting just to like to talk through like what needs to happen. Like let's just literally get everyone on the same page. And it's not like it immediately solved the problem, but it like we were able to make significantly more progress like once we fixed kind of those underlying communication issues. And I would say that's been a pattern that we've seen is like typically it's not like, oh, these developers didn't know how to code, or oh, these developers were slacking off, or like, things like that. It's usually it seems to be a bit more systemic typically in that like, no, the developers were doing the best they could with like the information they had, but like they weren't getting clear communicate or like they weren't getting clear information from, the client or the company, and the company wasn't getting clear information from the client. So it's, I don't know, there's a lot of that, I guess, of just like streamlining some of the internal communication processes, um that kind of like lay the foundation, I guess, for success. And then layering on top of that, like making sure that you have like each individual person, developer, whatever, like we look for people that are strong communicators, that are obviously strong developers. We've got a pretty rigorous process for that. But it takes more than just that. Like we've seen cases where like they had that, they had good people, but there was like some sort of systemic issue that needed to be fixed first.
Yeah, awesome, man. I love that. I think that's an extra value add, unique thing about what you do. It's not you're not just thinking about the project; you're looking about the business as a whole there, and going, well, there's obviously a
Yeah.
challenging something's wrong here, right? From a strategy
Right.
and process perspective, let's fix that, which then rolls it
Yeah.
down the line and will help the project, right, in that way. So I think that's it's an awesome value add because a lot of people don't, yeah, step back a little bit, right, and going, what else is creating
People
this?
can get, I think especially developers too, like engineers can get very like laser focused, which like often is what you want, is what you need, when you're working in a very, complex system, like you have to kind of laser focus. But I think you do need someone, right, that's kind of taking that 30,000 foot view of being like, okay, this person's laser focused, but like they're focused on the wrong thing. And that's something we see with like some of these LLMs and AI usage, right? Is like you can ask that agent to do a lot of anything, right? Lots of different things, and it'll often do that thing. But like just because you're moving fast, just because you have momentum, like if you're not headed in the right direction, like what you're not actually you're not actually moving forward, right? That's another important thing to think through too.
Yeah, definitely. I always say that, right? The strategy, the direction is so important. Otherwise, a few degrees off and you hit an iceberg on the Titanic, right? Or something like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Let's talk about AI being integrated within the software, right? Because I'm seeing
Hmm.
this a lot more with the software that's been out for a long time, right? Like the project management systems or the CRMs and things like this, right? We've signed up to for a long time. They're integrating it. So, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on having, I guess, on depending obviously on the solution, it's a bit subjective, but what people are building to build AI within it, so in the solution for people to have that, I guess, functionality on the end result for the users.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think I think we're just kind of scratching the surface now of like what can be built with AI. I think probably one of the biggest things, one of the biggest changes has been, in the past, software would only ever do exactly what you programmed it to do. Um, you had to like be very, very explicit about every single thing, right? It was basically this one long decision tree. I think this latest, round of, or this latest kind of phase of AI, large language models, has kind of opened up some pathways to, um, for basically people to kind of communicate with their computers through natural language, which means getting responses that are not, they're not like explicitly coded out. So, um, some of the basic things, right, are like all these like summarization capabilities, being able to like converse with something instead of having to go through like a very, linear set of steps. So, um, I think that's opened a lot of I think that's opened a lot of pathways, a lot of doors that like I think we're just now scratching the surface. Like I think, you know, the obviously the chat bot was kind of like the first initial, right? Like everyone added a chat bot, which I don't know. I think chatbots, I'm not a huge fan of chatbots. Like sometimes they can be helpful, but I think there's more to it than that. I think trying to think some of the more exciting things. I mean, some of the like generative design. Like I mentioned that I'm not a designer, but being able to work within some of these programs and prompt, being able to prompt something and then get designs based on prompts. Like I think that's pretty exciting to me. Um, you know, it's becoming another thing. It's unlocked some ability to incorporate more like machine learning into things, whereas previously maybe you would have needed like a whole team of engineers to do some sort of like machine learning thing. um the writing of that code is now faster, so companies are able to do more machine learning. So I'm thinking of, we did some work with a facilities management company. So basically they send folks out to do floor cleanings and pressure washing, all kinds of different things. um, they've built out some really interesting machine learning that takes in images, takes in videos, and then looks for areas of improvement. So like you can take images of like a building or something, and then the machine learning will say, oh, it looks like there's some like cracks here in the pavement, or things here that need to be fixed. Which previously, they don't have a huge engineering team. It's very small. But they've been able to do some things like that like previously, kind of I think kind of pre this current wave of AI, just would have been so cost prohibitive to do. So I don't know, that there's lots and lots of things I think that it's opening the door for startups to do that. Again, I think we really are just kind of scratching the surface.
Yeah, awesome. One thing that I'm seeing out there, I'd love to know from your perspective, is like obviously, a lot of people, when we're entrepreneurs, we're solving problems, right? And a lot of the
Yeah.
time, if we have the problem ourselves, right? It's like it's easy because it's like, okay, this is a problem for me. Like I see this problem, I'm going to build a solution, right? And let's say it's a software solution there. So are you seeing any of your clients go, hey, let's just say in their own business, they're going, hey, I don't really have good software for this. I need to build something for myself. And then it's like, well, actually, the industry needs this as an example, right? Because there isn't something out there. Are you seeing something switch, or I guess that's an opportunity there where they build something, they got their whole team working on it, they're going, okay, we're happy with this now. Okay, now we want to go into monetization mode, like to then deploy it, right?
Mm,
To the industry. Are you
yeah.
seeing anything like that? Or yeah.
Yeah. So like building an internal tool first to solve their problem and then kind of expanding that into the broader industry. Um, God, I'm sure that's happening. I'm trying to think if any of our clients have kind of gone down that path. It does seem like a lot of them are focused on one or the other, right? Like I just want to build, like we've worked with some folks that are like, we just want to build out this internal tool and it's very tailored to us. And then others are intentionally building a product that they want to go prod with. Um, I really like that. I like that model though of like building it for yourself first and then going broad. Um, I'm sure folks are doing that. I'm not sure if any of like our current clients have like explicitly gone down that path, but I really like that. I think that's a smart model because then then you can test within your own organization, right? Like yeah, then and then you can kind of tweak it. You can go from that, like you are the initial customer, right? You can go from 0 to 1 very quickly. Um, I guess if you're not you have to be careful that you don't tailor it so uniquely for your company that it only works for your company, right? You could end up in that situation before. Um, but actually, no, I think we did do some work. I'm thinking of an example now. We did some work for a logistics company, and they needed a new mobile app for their delivery drivers. They were like a last mile delivery company, and we built that mobile app initially for them. Then they realized that, hey, I think other delivery companies, last mile companies could use this app, and they did end up licensing that to other logistics companies. So yeah, we've definitely. I think more of our clients probably should do that. But we've definitely had some experience with that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's very powerful. Let's talk just quickly around APIs, right? So these are obviously the connectors between software platforms for people that don't know what they are. Um, how
Yeah,
important are you thinking? Because obviously we're putting a software out there, right? But a lot of the people out there, let's talk it from a business sense, here, they have other software, right? That they're using as well here. So to be able to transfer information and connect to other things, what are you seeing in the projects that you're building, and just making sure that you're not sort of you're being be able to put into their ecosystem, in terms of your solution.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's a good question because I do like we've had a number of we've had several clients or several prospects that have been like, hey, I want these three systems to talk to each other, or like I want to aggregate this, or I want to automate this, and we'll go in there and we'll look with them, and we'll be like, I mean, we would love to do this. We'd love to get these things to talk, but this software that you're using doesn't have an API. And I'm thinking of a particular example now. Um, this company has wanted to build out automation, and they've reached out to the company that they're using. I think it's like a combination of like their ERP and like a CRM, I think, but like it's specific to their industry. Um, and they want to build out this automation, and the company's like, "Oh yeah, we're working on our API. We're working on our API." And they're like, "Okay." And now it's been like 8 months now, I think, since when we initially started talking, this company was like, yeah, the API will be released. I think it was like at the end of last year. It was supposed to be out. And then I keep following up with them because I'm like, hey, what's the status of that API? And time and time again, they keep they they don't have it ready. So I think that's a situation where that company probably, should prioritize, releasing that API. I think, I think in the past it's tricky, I think, because it takes time, it takes effort, and it also makes it a little bit easier for folks to switch off of your platform if you open up your API. So I can see why companies may not want to invest in, creating an open API, but I do think it's starting to become table stakes now, because I think companies are just expecting with all these tools to be able to automate. So I think it's more important now than it was before. One other example I can think of is we were using, for our 401k, we were doing everything through John Hancock, and I wanted but it was a very manual process. Like someone had to go in and like do all these like manual things. And so we reached out to John Hancock and was like, hey, like, do you guys have a way to automate this process? And ultimately they said no, like there's no way, like we don't have that. I think maybe they were working on an API or something. And but there wasn't a way to automate it. So we reached out to a few other like more modern companies that had like that were able to like fully automate the 401k like with our payroll. And we switched away from John Hancock. We use a new provider now that had, and a big part of that was like they had automation. They had an API that we were able to automate with. So I mean, I think that's probably one of those things that in the short term, not having an API may not affect you, but long term, I think companies are companies are becoming more and more automated. I mean, it's only going to get more and more important to have some sort of API. Otherwise, I think your competitors are probably going to have them, and people ultimately eventually are going to switch.
Yeah, and I think especially now I'm seeing it from the AI perspective, right? Like if you think about Claude, it's connecting to a lot of different systems, right? Like maybe it's your accounting system, maybe it's your CRM, maybe like another system that you're building here, like multiple things. So it's grabbing information, right? So you're sort of creating your own sort of dashboard or system where you can pull information from different sources. So I think it's important, to be able to do that as well. So yeah, I think yeah, it's awesome, man, with what you're creating. And I think it's been a very, very powerful like discussion here, right? Of going, a lot of people think, oh yeah, I just get Lovable or Claude Code, do a few things, and I've got this solution, right? And there's a lot more that goes into a lot more thought, and that's why having experts in software, developers, engineers like yourself, that really understand the whole process and make sure that it's robust and it's monetizable and all these little steps that you said, I think is so important on getting a correct system, right? Because there's no point building something for 6 to 12 months if nobody buys it, like you said, right there. It's just waste of time and money. So how do we get that in the right way, in the secure way out there, and adding value into the ecosystem out there of business, in whatever way that is. So I think it's been a very powerful conversation today, mate. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Yeah. Yeah. As you were kind of finishing up or kind of closing there, I was just thinking about kind of where we're at with AI and how I think it's become a whole lot easier to get answers to questions, right? Like we can prompt something and get an answer, which means I think it's becoming so much more important to ask the right questions, right? So I think that's something I would encourage people to like think about the questions that you're asking. Think about the questions you're asking other people, but also think about the questions that you're prompting, that you're asking AI. Because I think the answers are ultimately can only be as good as whatever question it is that you're asking. So I think it's becoming less about having all the answers and more about asking the right questions.
Yeah, completely agree, right? You don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know the right question to ask, then you're not going to get necessarily the right answer that you want. So, so true. And this is why
Yeah.
having people around you, right? Coaches, mentors, consultants, advisors, partners, like yourself, to help guide the questions, right? They're going, hey, have you thought about this? This is what we need to be working on here. I think is so valuable, right, in that process, because otherwise, you could be going down the wrong way, right? Hit that iceberg like we talked about there instead of in the right way. So, no, I love it, mate. And yeah, we connected through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey from being a software engineer to now being the founder and CEO of Brewer Digital. Mate, awesome guy, so knowledgeable. And I think you've really shown of like all these different elements and the stories and things to watch out for, right, in this journey. Because in the end, I think you will agree we all want everyone to succeed, right? There, but most businesses don't succeed because they don't do these things, right? And they don't have the right partners and team on board, right? There to make sure that you give yourself the best possible chance. I think you're going out there, you're doing that, and you're flexible. It's like we could do the whole thing for you, or we can just be there to guide you if you want to get more involved. So I love the combination of that, right? Depending on what people want, and yeah, I'm sure you continue to help early stage startup founders launch products with confidence. I'm very grateful that we connected. Look forward to partnering as well. So Joel, how can people find you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so people can find me on LinkedIn, Joel Brewer. I mean, like Joel Brewer, Brewer Digital, I should pop up. But also my website, brewerdigital.com. People can find more information there. So yeah, I would say either our website or LinkedIn. Reach out. I'd love to chat. I love having conversations, regardless of kind of where folks are at in their journey, whether they're, building something new or just thinking about something. Always happy to have a conversation.
Yeah, awesome. We'll definitely check out Joel there, the website, socials there. Get yourself to that next level out, no matter where your journey, whether you're thinking about it, you're already there, or you need some help because you're stuck. Joel can help you in whatever stage that you're at. And mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Cassiotis, or visit my website, ethancassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.